Hey guys, Aiden here, back for another video, and in this video guys, I'm going to be doing some Hytale speculation. So I recently watched a video about late game automation and farming in Hytale by 30virus, and it got me thinking, how would the mechanics behind that work? Obviously we don't have any sort of AI to work with because the game's not out yet, but how could we suggest that these systems would work? Like, what are the functions of each component in these systems? Basically what I'm saying is there going to be some sort of redstone, and if so, how is it going to work? So sit back, relax, and here's my speculation. So instead of having redstone, I think it's going to be a little bit more involved. Now, I don't mean like redstone isn't involved, because obviously you can get very complicated with redstone, but I feel like it's going to get more complicated just to make the same sort of thing. Let's say, for example, you want to make a 2x1 flush piston door in Minecraft. So, you have like you have 6 sticky pistons and like the 2 blocks, and then you have 2 redstone dusts, a repeater, and then another redstone dust. I said that backwards, a redstone dust, repeater, then 2 redstone dust. But, I mean, it's a very simple circuit to make that sort of thing, and it comes out to be a really cool thing. But I don't think Hytale's gonna work that way. So instead of having redstone dust, I think it's gonna just be wires. So these wires are gonna be, I would imagine they'd be basically invisible, kind of like string in Minecraft, but a little bit thicker and more vibrant, so you can actually see what you're doing, but you wouldn't have to deal with the textures getting in the way. So let's say you have to accidentally expose some, you could maybe integrate that along with the environment or your build or something. I also think these wires are gonna follow the laws of gravity and just overall physics, so you can't just have a wire stretching from across the room and expect it to just work. Like, it's gonna dip down and then it'll come across. So it's not like it's just gonna be flat and defy the laws of physics. I think it's actually going to overall like dip down a little bit. I also don't think repeaters are going to be necessary to repeat redstone signals. I think there are going to be something that does extend the signal, and I will talk about that later. But I think these wires are going to probably be made of different alloys, and these alloys can reach a longer distance compared or relative to what material they're made of. Let's just say, for example, aluminum like stretches 60 game blocks or something, and then copper would do like 40, and then you'd have like tin, which would do like 10 or something. You see what I'm saying? So like you can make wires of different things or out of different things, but whatever you make them out of is how long it's gonna work. So you can't just have infinite signal for each material. So that won't work like that. So let's get on to the main point that I wanted to make in this video, which is I think the circuitry in Hytale, if any, would revolve around microchips. So instead of having things like redstone torches and observer clocks or something like that, or redstone repeaters, I think we would have microchips. And what you could do is have a base plate, and then you could put a microchip in it, and that microchip will do a function based on what it says it does. So for example, you could have a base plate be inserted into a block, and then you can have a wire running into it, wire running out of it, and this could be like a signal inverter or something. So let's say like the redstone torch would just be a signal inverter microchip, and you could have signal going into it, and then the microchip would say, let's not have that, so it would be off after that, and then vice versa. So let's say like there's no signal, the microchip would actually output signal. I also think a microchip for boosting a signal would be cool. So let's say you have a copper wire, you reach the 40 blocks, and then you realize, oh wait, I just need a little bit more, like 2 blocks more or something. Then you could have a microchip inserted into a base plate, and then you could have that be a signal booster. So it could like refresh the signal. I'm not gonna go into how like that would work, because you'd be asking me how to make a microchip in real life basically, and I don't know how to do that. So we'll just say it works the way it works, and then it could boost that signal and get a refresh. So there would be some sort of repeater, but I feel like these signal boosters should be relatively hard to get, because if you're making big contraptions that need these signal boosters, then at that point you're pretty late game. So it's not like you're gonna be like, oh, I need this amount of this material, I'm so screwed. You're like, oh, okay, so it's only this, that's fine. I also think clocks are gonna be a major thing in microchips, And let's say the game runs on ticks. Let's say Hytale runs on ticks like it does in Minecraft. So if we had clocks in microchips, we could have a clock be on, off, on, off, on, off. And let's say that would work for every game tick. So let's say we have X amount of game ticks for one clock, like the basic clock. And it'd just be really fast. So it'd be like da 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 da. It'd just be really fast. Then you could have 2x of this set of game ticks, and then so it'd be 1/2 of the speed, 1/3 of the speed, 1/4 of the speed, whatever, and so on and so forth. And you could customize this the way you want. And since we already have confirmed that Hytale is not going to have a crafting grid, and it's just going to be kind of taking things out of your inventory to make stuff, this should not be hard to integrate at all. Speaking of the crafting grid, I just want to pause and take a second to think about how this is going to work. So crafting these components out of, well, not a grid, it's going to make the crafting process a lot smoother, and it's probably going to make a lot more players want to use these kind of features. Because if you can have very easy crafting, it's going to be easier for players to actually make this stuff, so then they can get on with actually creating their creations. And that's going to be something that players are going to want to do, and they're like, whoa, this is actually really easy, and this is really not time consuming. So take, for example, a game called Forager. You don't have a crafting grid. What you do is you get stuff to smell, and then you just have certain things in your inventory, and then it just crafts it for you. So I'm guessing Hytale is going to work the same way, to where it just takes it out of your inventory and then gives you the product, and it will take the amount of materials needed, so you don't have to worry about a crafting grid. So I think Hytale is something that is going to be very similar to Minecraft and Forager. I know I haven't heard anyone mention Forager, but I think Forager is a game that's going to have a pretty big influence on the similarities between Hytale and the other games. Alright, so let's head on to function blocks now. So I obviously think something like an observer would be cool. I don't think a microchip for an observer, like, you know, something like an observer would be good in Hytale, because it just seems like it'd be way too small. What you could do maybe is have like a laser, and then it could detect if the laser is, well, it just stopped. So maybe having lasers be integrated into Hytale circuitry would be really cool. I also think pistons are going to be in the game, because, I mean, pistons are everywhere. They don't have to be like so big like they are in Minecraft. I mean, they can just be pretty small, and they can actually just be integrated into multiple things. I also think that having multiple types of these components will allow you to not only use less materials or more, depending on how big these things are. So let's say you have like a function block, but you want it to be small or big, and the big one can be it can account for multiple things, where the small one can only account for one thing. So maybe using big function blocks, like let's say an observer, maybe that could be used to make some logic gates like AND gate, NOR gate, XOR gate, etc. And maybe having these like smaller circuits not only use less material, but they also can fit within one game kind of block. So like if these blocks are really big, maybe they can be micro blocks or miniature blocks or whatever, and that's how these these circuitry components would work. They can revolve around those micro blocks. Maybe they could be called circuit blocks or circuit units or something, to signify that, hey, this is a special type of unit. This isn't what the game revolves around, but this is how the circuitry will revolve around this. So back to saying about pistons, I want to give the idea that pistons can be multi-directional. So let's say you have an input, and then you have piston, like the piston activates for 2 adjacent sides, or maybe 2 opposing sides, or maybe 3 adjacent sides, or all 4 sides, or just 1 side. And I think what that would do is allow for many complex creations, and it would allow players to get more creative and design their own things. And I think that would lead to Hytale circuitry being a bigger component in the overall game. I also think some sort of a version of a hopper is definitely necessary. However, I don't think you guys are going to be thinking the same thing I am. I don't think hoppers are going to be in the game. I think that there are going to be conveyor belts, and they can transport items. And then once you need to actually put the items into a container, let's say like a chest, they can lead into an upward facing pipe, and then you can actually see the items go into the pipe like Mario style. And then the pipes will like carry them into chests or something. And I think the pipes should work pretty similar to hoppers, in the sense that you can transport items using pipes, but maybe conveyor belts are just cooler looking, like water streams are, or maybe they're just cheaper because maybe pipes have to use some sort of special electricity power to keep them running and keep items moving in them. So maybe like it's kind of like pipes are enclosed conveyor belts or something. And maybe like a vault door and a password lock would be a really cool thing to have. So maybe you can integrate some magic from Hytale into this. So let's say you have a door and you want like all your precious items to be in there. You have like this really cool, awesome, big vault door, but you can't open it unless you know the correct passcode. And I don't think having players be able to just break through the door would be cool. And obviously, you know, server side, they could just do their own things for that. But I feel like having an element of you have to figure out this thing would be really cool. So let's say you have to figure out a way to access the lock. And maybe you could have like, or maybe you just, you know, like undo a lock so you get like the correct passcode or something. Or you have like a key card or something. Or what would be really interesting is if you had that and then you could develop your own program to hack it. So maybe you can get an item that overrides the systems and you can just break into things. So if you want to play cops and robbers, there you go. Inputs are something I haven't talked about yet, and I want to mention that I think all this should revolve around electricity, so there should be generators and stuff. But I didn't want to get into that because I want to talk about components, not how they'll all be running. Alright, so talking about inputs, I think tripwires are pretty necessary. I mean, they're used in like all the spy movies and stuff, and not everything is revolving around Minecraft. I mean, they extend to things outside of Minecraft. So obviously, tripwires would be a very good idea because let's say you have something and it triggers a tripwire. Maybe if you go to mob farming and let's say you have a chork and then they want to get the piece of meat, you can have a tripwire detect whenever they walk past it, or maybe a laser. Maybe the laser is the one, and then the signal is interrupted, and then the floor drops out underneath them. But let's say a laser. I mean, it's a laser, so it's not like it's gonna dip down and then it's gonna like crush the laser. I think that'd be really cool though if you used like a tripwire and string, and then like if the floor dropped out, the string would fall, and then you could crush the string by mistake, and then it would rip the tripwires off the walls, so it would result in you having to be more resourceful. But you could have a certain area to where that wouldn't happen. So let's say like 2 or like 0 to 5 blocks, maybe that wouldn't happen. Let's say 0 to 3. 0 to 3 blocks, that wouldn't happen. But then when you hit block number 4, the string dips down, and then the pistons, let's say, they crush the string, rips it off the wall, and then your system doesn't work anymore. So you have to resort to using more expensive things like lasers. Obviously, levers are gonna have to be in there. I mean, levers are everywhere. On, off, whatever, very simple. But I think special mobs could activate levers as well. So maybe you have some AIs that are super smart, and then they're like, ooh, a lever, and they pull the lever. Maybe that could be used for farming. Let's say you have a Kweebec. This is gonna sound so wrong, but what if you wanna farm Kweebecs, and then they're like, ooh, a lever, and they pull it because let's say they're naturally curious. Maybe that's like a trait they would have. So then they would pull the lever, and then all of a sudden the floor drops out and they get squished and die or something. But the lever would still be flicked down, so then the floor would still be open. I don't know how these farms will work. I'm just giving ideas. So maybe AIs can work with that. Buttons, I mean, come on, they're buttons. You just push a button and it works. I don't think there should be just like a big old button. I feel like having like a doorknob kind of button would be cool. So like buttons can be integrated to make doorknobs. I think that'd be really awesome. And the last thing I want to mention is that for buttons is that they should be able to be activated by projectiles and special mobs. I already talked about special mob, like AI things. So like Kweebec presses a button or something. So let's say, what if you're in danger? And the Kweebec detects that, hey, there are lots of monsters nearby. So you have like a whole defense of Kweebecs, and then they press buttons, and then like your base has walls around it, and they just push up the walls so then the evil mobs can't get through. And the last thing, guys, for inputs is pressure plates. I don't think they should be like Minecraft or even look similar to Minecraft. I think they should be special microchips. So these are going back to the microchips, but I want to add these into inputs and not microchips section for clarity. So I think these should be microchips, but you integrate them into decorations. So let's say you have like a floor mat or a carpet, and then something steps on that carpet, the microchip gets the signal from the weight, and then, or maybe it's just like regular pressure plate, like it pushes down or something. I don't know how it would work. Kind of like Walmart, you know how like the doors open up after you press on the or step on the mat, something like that. That's what I'm saying. So like something along the lines of that would be really cool. All right, guys, I touched briefly on this earlier on, and I said I didn't want to talk about this, but I kind of do now. So I think that having generators would be very important. So I don't think that generators should make noise, and if they do, they'll be really silent, like very quiet. And I think that having generators can expose how things work. Like, let's say you have a player who's coming in and you want to trap them, and then they hear generators, like, oh wait, I know something's up. So maybe you want to have a quieter generator, so maybe you can like upgrade it to make it quieter, or like you put a silencer on it. But I definitely think there should be some sort of energy that should be created. Maybe burning coal, like activating some sort of furnace, and that energy released from that could maybe like, I don't know, power a generator. Maybe you have some sort of water generator or something. I think that'd be really cool for that. So kind of works more like real life. All right, guys, I think that is everything I want to talk about for this Hytale speculation video. If you guys did enjoy it, be sure to leave a like down below and subscribe for more. Be sure to turn on post notifications, comment down below, share this video around, share my channel around. Also, be sure to join my Discord server. Link is in the description. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @Ninja. But guys, that is pretty much it. So peace out, guys, and thanks for watching.